Section 8.1.2 DoS Attacks, Part 1. We are going to explore 4 types of attacks in this unit: denial of service, or DoS, spoofing and sniffing, wireless and mobile threats, and system exploits. There are 2 ways an attack can be implemented. The first type of attack can be on specific software or operating systems. The attacker is usually taking advantage of some flaw in code or a user error. These usually fall into a malware category, or they fall into the web-based learning coming up in a later unit. The second type of attack is on specific protocols or services. This takes advantage of the mechanics of protocols or services, forcing them to behave in ways that are not intended. Each section of Unit 8 will cover different ways to attack through a protocol or service. This section is focused on denial of service. A denial of service attack is when so much traffic is sent to a victim that it collapses. These types of attacks prevent a system or server from functioning normally, making it unavailable to perform its tasks or respond to users. The name denial of service is important. The point of this attack is to make the server unavailable to real users and to deny users access to this service. Remember when we talked about CIA in Unit 1? The acronym CIA stands for the core tenets of cybersecurity: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. A DoS attack is a threat to availability. In the past, a single attacker could bring down a server, but that is more difficult today. Operating systems and server hardware are much more robust and can almost withstand any amount of traffic that a single system could send. Because of this, DDoS came into being. Distributed denial of service is when multiple systems come under the control of the attacker and are used in a coordinated attack to create a traffic spike in the system. In a DDoS, a lot of devices are used to send traffic. Usually the devices, which we sometimes call zombies, are unaware that they are part of the DDoS because malware was installed that makes them part of a botnet. The SYN flood is a typical DDoS, as it is an attempt to flood a target with data or requests so that the target network is saturated. This results in the loss of legitimate use of the system. In this case, the request is to connect, but since the connection is not completed, the target is left with an overwhelming number of half-open connections. In plain language, they are left hanging. This attack is created by misusing the 3-way handshake we talked about in previous lessons. In the GIF image, we can see an analogy of the SYN. We see one student putting their hand out like they are going to shake hands. They are sending out the initial SYN. The victim also puts out their hand as a SYN ACK. The attacker pulls their hand away at the last moment, which is similar to how the attacker does not send the final ACK. The victim is left waiting for the completion of the handshake. This is what the SYN flood is doing, asking for a connection, but then leaving the receiver hanging. The victim keeps each SYN request in a table or queue of connections in progress and holds them until they time out. Eventually, the queue is full, and the victim can't accept any new connections. So how can you tell a DDoS is happening? The first clue is a sudden and unexpected drop in your internet bandwidth. Another indication is a sudden, overwhelming number of requests from multiple hosts outside the network. And finally, a sudden drain on victim device resources is a good indication a DDoS attack is happening. Unintentional DoS or accidental DoS happens when a digital resource becomes suddenly popular and is unable to handle the increase in demand. It is not unusual for a DDoS to happen accidentally. Think about Cyber Monday shopping or tickets for a popular artist going on sale. If the servers are swamped with users trying to connect, there can be a DDoS with no malicious intent. Make sure you are planning ahead for redundant servers in cases of heavy load. A permanent DDoS happens when the server is not just overwhelmed, it becomes inoperable. This is usually the result of someone getting physical action to the system and doing physical damage. The solution is clear. Don't just think about digital security. You need to also make sure your door locks and security guards are on the job.